crimp a network cable. Guy, what are we going to need for this class? Well, we're going to need a crimper, a simple crimper. We don't need anything extraordinary, a cable cutter, obviously. The UTP cable. In this case, we're going to use a category 5E cable, many cable. We're going to need a tester. Well, this is optional if you have it right, and if not, well, test it when you connect it. And we're going to need protective caps for the RJ45 connector, and obviously with a pair of RJ45 connectors. What are we going to teach you? How to crimp the UTP cable or the RJ45 connector correctly, because there is a very bad practice where the cable cap doesn't fit inside the connector, which prevents it from being properly secured. If you notice here, I move it this way and the cables don't move. When the cable hood is exposed, if we move it this way, the cables move internally, and this can create false contacts and connection failures, which is what we don't want. So we're going to teach you how to do it correctly. So the first thing we need to know is that there is a standard called T568A or T568B. What does the standard establish? It establishes the color code that we are going to use within the punchdown, or it is a structured cabling standard for Ethernet networks, especially for UTP cables. Let's remember that UTP cables come with 4 internally color-coded pairs. There are exactly 8 wires in a cable. And, well, this standard is established for UTP cable category 5E, category 6, 7, 8, etc. This standard was published in 1995 by the Telecommunications Industry Association and the Electronic Industries Alliance. This was created precisely to standardize, because before this, each brand, each manufacturer, each technician used a different code, which was a disaster. Because when one company arrived, they did one thing, and another company arrived and did another. So there was no standard. This standard was created precisely to make it easier to implement telecommunications, residential, commercial, and industrial projects. There are basically 2 types of connections: direct connections and cross connections. Within the direct connection, we are going to establish that at each of the cable that we are going to connect, we are going to use the same standard, whether it is T568A or T568B, or the same at both ends of the cable that we are going to crimp. For example, here it is crimped with the T568B standard. So, since it is a direct connection, we are going to use it the same way at both ends. In cross connections, as its name suggests, we are going to do, for example, we are going to do T568B at this end and T568A at this end. In which case is it used? For example, a direct connection is used to connect PCs to a router, or a PC to a switch, or a DVR to a PC, a DVR to a switch, or a PC to a switch. Crossover connections are used to connect, for example, one PC to another, or a switch to another switch, a router to another router. This type of crossover connection is practically obsolete. I say this as general knowledge because a technology called Auto MDIX was implemented about 10 years ago. This means that the port of each switch or router automatically detects whether or not to cross pairs. And a normal straight cable can be used even on devices of the same type. For example, between a router and a router, we can use a straight cable, and with the aforementioned technology, the router automatically understands that it should not cross pairs. So we can use a straight cable to connect devices of the same type. So let's get to the lesson. Now that we've seen this, which is important to know, let's get to the lesson. So what's the first thing we have to do? We put the protective cap on each end. If you're going to do this at home, you need to put this on. Well, it's more of a protector that does fulfill its function, because this protector prevents the RE445 connector hooks from getting caught on other cables, which can cause desancles and equipment failures, pisa and sense. But for example, if you're going to put it at home and you only have one computer, it's unlikely to get caught on anything. This is especially for when you're going to make large connections in a data center and so on. So let's go. Once we've put the caps on, we go to one of the ends, and the crimper has a part for cutting and a part for stripping the cable to remove the cap from the cable. So to remove the cap, we're going to calculate about 2 centimeters, 3 centimeters or so. We put it here and here without pressing too hard. We're going to turn it. We're going to turn it over. So, and just pull with a little force there. And that's it. We're going to pull it. We can cut this a little bit with the cutter. What does the standard say? Well, we can use either the T568A or the T568B. In this case, we're going to use the T568B, which tells us that the white-orange cable goes first, followed by the orange cable. Then we go to the green pairs. The green pair, we put the green-white pair. We move the green cable back out of the lock. We continue with the blue pair. Then we put the blue cable and the white-blue cable. Let's think about it. Let's comb it little by little so that they are as straight as possible. At this point, we put the green cable count. Notice that it makes a jump. There are 2 orange pairs, the green-white pair, the 2 blue pairs, and here the jump gives us the cable. Then here comes the brown pair, the white-brown, and finally the brown. And it should look like this. We comb it there. Here we make a calculation with the RJ45 connector. Note that from here I am calculating that the hood will fit inside, right inside the RJ45 connector. So we go here, calculate here more or less, and cut with the cutter. Now the cut is straight, and now we proceed to insert what is the RJ45 connector. We must take into account, and we have to keep this in mind, that the part that goes up, or the part that we are going to see, is the part where the connectors come. Note that here are the connectors, and the part with the hook is the one that goes down. It is very important that we take this into account so that it is correctly crimped. It is easy to get confused. We insert it, moving it little by little, until you notice that the hood of the cable fits inside. This will ensure that when the hook goes down and grabs the cable, it will be perfectly secured. We can see from above that all the little cables have been routed all the way to the end. Let's look closely here. It's better to do it slowly the first few times we do it to see that each cable is perfectly placed on each pin. Let's make sure it's been placed correctly. And the crimper has its space here and here. It indicates with 8P that this is the one we're going to use out of the 8 pins on the connector. If we try to insert it here, it obviously can't. Obviously, it can't be in the middle. And here, we're done. Ready? So, it goes through correctly. We crimp. It clicks. And that's it. And it's crimped correctly. Let's move the hood forward. And this should be the connection. Let's do it again at the other end. So, as we said, we have about 2-3 centimeters left. We go to the part that is 2-3 centimeters or so.